The Federal Reserve just made a big change, and I need you to know exactly what's going on. This is going to have an impact throughout the rest of 2024. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. In today's video, we are going to talk about a change that seems small, but the ripples will be something we need to pay attention to, so we're going to break that all down today. All right. So we're looking here at a press release from the Federal Reserve dated January 24, 2024. And we're talking about the Bank Term Funding Program. This was an emergency program that was set up by the Federal Reserve in March of 2023. You had Silicon Valley Bank, all these other banks start to fail, so they create this special facility. By the way, it says at the bottom line, which I love, this was with the approval of the Treasury Secretary, your favorite and mine, no, my favorite only, Janet Yellen, approving that so that they could continuously give money to where it needed to be at any given time. All right, great. So this is a temporary emergency measure that 1 year later is supposed to end. Here we are coming up in March. And they're saying, hey, March, it's over. But something changed, okay? They are changing the interest rate that's associated with this. I'll break it down for you. But it is a big change, and we'll talk about why. Looking at this, you are seeing the BTFP, and you're also seeing what's important, basically the interest rate, the Fed funds rate. So look at the blue line right there, and that's your interest rates. The red is your BTFP. They each have their own interest rate. Now think about this. You have a bank, let's just say JP Morgan, okay? It's fun to pick on them. JP Morgan could go and borrow from this BTFP, take some cash, and then park it at the Federal Reserve. In their reserves, the excess reserves, park them over there overnight and earn an interest, that interest being like the spread in between these two. Now, if you could borrow, just let me ask you something here. If you could borrow $1 and get back $2, how many dollars would you borrow? Can you think of that for a second? How many dollars? You borrow $1 and you get back $2, right? I think the answer should be as many dollars as I can borrow, because I'm going to get double back. Well, that's sort of an extreme example to highlight the point of what's happening today. They're borrowing at a lower rate, putting it to somewhere that is risk-free for them, and then getting the difference. Now, it's not double, but it's still risk-free. So some of the cash that they have been, investing has been in this, but now that's changed. So the Federal Reserve realized what's going on. The big banks are doing this, and they're saying, okay, we realize what's going on. We're gonna stop that. So if they're trying to do this, make money off the spread, it's not going to work for them. That's what the Federal Reserve has decided, okay? Some have speculated that they want to keep it going longer than the 1 year. Why would they do that? Well, maybe these small banks are in big trouble. And I've got some information to show you related to that here today. So, of course, SVB starts failing, boom, immediately. There's this big uptick. They open up this facility immediately. There's an uptick in the usage of the facility, and then it just slowly starts growing over time. But then, right around December timeframe, it starts to accelerate. And I guess they just got the memo. Hey, let's just use this to make some cash. Why not? And now that we'll see how it changes, but potentially they're not going to bother anymore if they're not going to make the spread in between the two. There's another problem. You got March, right? That's when this is supposed to be finishing up. But you also have another thing. That's the reverse repos. Well, reverse repos are coming to an end potentially pretty soon. You got about $600 billion a night versus where it was for quite a while. It was like 2.3 trillion, somewhere in that range. And now, as of March timeframe, that would be down to zero. Okay. So you got the BTFP ending, you've got the reverse repos ending, and the potential for any form of change in interest rates. Is the Federal Reserve going to cut? Are they going to announce a cut? At the same time, are they going to stop or at least announce quantitative tightening? I think we could probably get at least a reduction in the quantitative tightening. So instead of cutting $80 billion a month as they're doing it right now, maybe we're going to get 60, 40, 20, and so on. That's what they did in previous cycles. So that could change things. And Lori Logan from the Federal Reserve specifically made this known. And she said, we got to start doing that because the reverse repos are getting down too far and we're not ready for that. I brought this up many times, previous videos. If you haven't already, you've got to subscribe to the channel because these are the things that I get into, and then like 2 months later, they come in the news. So you can be way ahead of the curve. All right. So that's where we're at today with the reverse repos. March is a big one. There's no question about that. And so we could see the data. Give me a second here as we look at this to explain it. What we can see is that the small banks are they've got a big issue because without that BTFP, they don't have the reserves. They need that cash because a lot of people start pulling their cash from these small banks. So they're kind of making up the shortfall by utilizing this BTFP. So we got a problem. So maybe they have to extend that beyond March. It shows fragile banking system that perhaps we can see much more consolidation. JP Morgan comes in, I'll buy them. Goldman Sachs says, okay, I'll buy them. And we have less competition, and we have these octopus, this monster that consumes it all. It's already like that technically, but you're going to have that issue. At the same time, though, if you look at commercial real estate, you know commercial real estate's bad. You could see all the empty malls. If you've never seen those videos before, it's been a while since I've seen them, but they were all over YouTube where you would just see this empty mall completely abandoned. There's debt associated with that. A lot of debt. All right. And then you look at the retail, you have beautiful like Fifth Avenue location, like prime real estate. I've seen places all over every city basically where you have this really nice prime real estate and yet there's no tenant. It's empty. Okay. There's debt associated with that. But in many cases, a lot of this commercial real estate, like more than 50%, I believe, is with these small lenders. You see the problem? That's where we could have the biggest problem. Not with the JP Morgans, not with the Goldman Sachs's. It can start small. And then, of course, there's a ripple effect. That's an issue. That's the big concern right now. And then it just says stocks are becoming more sensitive to a decline in reserves. There's no question about that. I've covered it before. This is the money mirror method. And essentially all you need to know is that the more money and liquidity that's in the system, more money and liquidity creates a situation where we can have stock prices going higher. Less money, less liquidity in the system, stocks can go lower. But over time, as time has moved on, I've really studied this in depth. The more time that passes, the more reliant on that. So maybe 100 years ago, that really wasn't a factor. But like 50 years ago, it was a little bit more. And then like 2000, it started to become really evident. 2008, oh my goodness. And ever since then, in 2020 and beyond, it's like extremely. So you got to follow the money mirror method. That's what I talk about on the Friday live sessions that I have. But for those who don't, I've done a video about it before, money mirror method. Some Wall Street executives feel a tantrum is coming in the U.S. short-term financing markets, perhaps as soon as March. It could put pressure on the Federal Reserve to ease policy. You see? March. This is the big one. A series of events are expected between March and May, some of which will reduce the amount of cash in the financial system, while others increase the demand for liquidity. a Fed lending facility that was put in place after the regional banking crisis last year will expire on March 11th. All right. It talks about the other option, which is the standing repo facility that really hasn't been used, all on this, BTFP. All right. And then they talk about all these other things that are happening, but March is the big one. Let's keep an eye on that. Of course, if you're here on the channel, you get all the news, you get everything. But there's the big concern is like, okay, where do we get this liquidity from? If the Federal Reserve's not the one pumping and interest rates are still high, we need more liquidity. Uh-oh, we got a problem. Well, the expectation is, of course, that the Federal Reserve has to come in and backstop the losses, has to come in and buy up all the treasuries, buy up the mortgage-backed securities, maybe, just maybe, buy the stocks. Oh, they won't do that. Well, what did they do last time? They bought ETFs on the corporate bonds, for instance. That was an indirect, really a direct bailout of the biggest companies in the world. Apple was the biggest beneficiary of that particular program. Apple, the biggest company or one of the biggest companies in the entire world. You see what they do? Unbelievable. All right. If you want to be able to get ahead of everybody, if you want to have the information that is basically just, it's not known, you're not going to be able to get to it for the most part. Well, I do that on my live sessions. That is themoneygps.com/live. I want to see you there because when our small little group, we are able to connect and share and get the latest and greatest information literally before they happen, before they become mainstream. So you can take advantage of that. And we talk about all different opportunities that are available and everything. That link is down in the description. As always, I want to see you back here tomorrow. Take care.